Hi guys, my name is Alicia, and if you don't know who I am, I make thrifting and sustainable fashion type videos every single week. And today we're going to be doing another thrift flip. We are going to be making a DIY Sherpa lined vest. It's been really cold here lately, so I wanted to make something like more cozy, and I got my inspiration from a few different places. The design of the vest I'm going to be creating today is heavily inspired by the account Sunworn Vintage on Instagram. I absolutely love her designs, and she recently started making these super cool like towel Sherpa lined vests, and they're just like totally my style. So if you're watching this video, definitely go follow her account and support her if you can, because she is super talented. And while her designs are typically made with like towels, I kind of wanted to change it up a bit and use a blanket, which kind of ties into the second source of inspiration, which is this vest that Alexa Sunshine has been wearing a lot. I just thought like the texture of it and the pattern of it was super cool. So I actually headed to the thrift store with that in mind, and I think I found the perfect blanket for this project. It is this like navy blue, super soft blanket with this super cute like wintry polar bear print on the bottom, and I just thought that would look so cute as a vest. And then as for the Sherpa, and probably what inspired me to make this, is this piece of Sherpa I've been hanging on to for a while. It actually was originally a dog bed. Now there isn't quite enough to line the entire jacket. I think there's just enough to line the front, but we're gonna see. I think I can make it work. So I'm very excited to start this project. I can't wait to see how it turns out. And I'm also excited because I feel like this is actually gonna be a very simple project. Hopefully. I do possibly plan on adding some pockets, which might complicate things, but we'll figure that out together. But first of all, we need to start cutting the fabric. The pattern I chose for this project is the Pearl Soho quilted vest, and it's completely free actually. I did make a few minor adjustments to the pattern, including rounding out the front edges and flattening out the collar in order to get a closer match to the Sunworn vest. Next, I placed my pattern pieces on the blanket, making sure to place the front pattern where the polar bear print is. Then I went ahead and cut out my first piece. Here's when I realized I totally forgot to show you guys the tag of the blanket, originally from the brand Robert Kitchen, made in Canada. Obviously had to choose a vintage blanket. Next, in order to do the other side of the vest, you want to flip the pattern piece over so that it's going to be different, and then cut it out. For the back piece, you want to fold your blanket in half and lay the pattern right on the fold. That way, once you cut it out, you'll have one big piece. Then you just want to repeat the process on the Sherpa as well. Like I suspected, I did not have enough Sherpa for the back inside piece, but with the few Sherpa scraps I did have left, I figured it might be worth it to at least add the Sherpa to the bottom and top of that inner back piece, since these pieces might still be slightly visible from the outside. Once all your pieces are cut out, you should have 4 front pieces and 2 back pieces. I also went ahead and cut out some simple pockets, and I repurposed the bias tape that was already on the blanket to create the strings. Alright, so it's a new day, new grandpa sweater, and all the pattern pieces have officially been cut out. This is all that's remaining from the scraps, and I'm really impressed because I basically used this whole blanket essentially. So we do not need this anymore. Here's one of the back pieces that I kind of had to Frankenstein together. This is the inside of the back, so you're really never gonna see this, but I figured because I had a little bit of Sherpa left that I would add it to the top and the bottom just so you can kind of still see it peeking through on the outside. As for the plan for assembling the rest of the vest, I decided to kind of follow this method where you attach the inside and outside pieces and then eventually like flip it inside out, kind of like a reversible vest. But my fabric is quite bulky, so I'm not quite sure how it's gonna work out for us, but we're gonna figure it out. But first things first, I did want to add the tag to the inside of the vest just because I think it's going to make it look more legit, and I kind of like to honor like the original designer of the blanket. And now's the best time to do it because it means we're not going to see the stitches on the outside of the jacket. So very simple. I just pinned the tag in place and sewed it down. Next up, we are going to actually start assembling the vest. Starting with our outside layer, we want to lay the front pieces right sides together with the back piece so that we can attach them at the shoulders. Then we can take it over to our machine and sew the shoulders in place. And you can go ahead and repeat that whole process to the inner layer as well. Okay, so now that we have both our outside and inside pieces attached at the shoulder seams, we're basically gonna lie them on top of each other right sides together and sew together everything except for any of these like side seams right here, because that is what we need in order to flip the garment inside out. And like I said, I don't know how the flipping inside out is gonna go, but crossing our fingers for that. But already you can kind of see the vest starting to take shape and take form. And I'm so glad I found this blanket. Like I feel like it's just the perfect print for this vest. And I'm very excited to see what it looks like after this next step. Like I said, right sides together, and we are going to go ahead and sew together all the sides except for the side seams. Sewing these pieces together wasn't necessarily hard, but it was tricky working around all the fabric since it is just like one solid piece. And it did take a bit of time, as this is the main bulk of the sewing that we're gonna have to do. Once I finished sewing that together, I realized I completely forgot to add this little tie strings. So I did have to go back and seam rip a small hole in order to feed the string through, and then sewed everything in place. Ideally, you would want to add the strings as you sew, but this ended up working too. Okay, so the vest is all properly sewn together, meaning that the next step is to add the pockets. Now, I've been sitting here for like a few minutes debating if I should be adding the pockets before I flip it inside out, and it's really been messing with my brain, and I think the easiest thing is going to be to just flip this thing right side out and then figure it out from there. So this is the moment of truth to see if for one we can even flip it inside out, and for two, hopefully it's gonna actually look pretty good. This piece, okay, yeah. So I need to pull this entire piece through this tiny little shoulder seam. So wish me luck. It's definitely a tight squeeze, but I think it's gonna make it through. Oh my gosh, that totally worked. And look how good it looks. I'm really happy with this. Okay, let's do the other side. Look how amazing this is looking already. You can see how once I added the strings, they're just sticking out here all nice. Oh my goodness. This is turning out exactly how I wanted it. So now we have to figure out the pockets, and I think flipping it right side out was the right decision to make. So I could definitely bail at this point, but I really do want to add pockets, so let's do it. So for the pockets, you want to first place it right sides together with the front. I gave it a quick measure so that both sides of the pocket will line up perfectly. Then I pinned it in place to that top layer only so that we can then sew it in place. Once that's sewn down, you actually want to flip it under where the pocket is eventually just going to naturally lie, and we're actually going to top stitch that in place. This just kind of helps keep the structure of the side seams and keep the pocket where it's supposed to be. So now that we have one side of the pocket sewn in, we can add the other. We are now working with the outside layer of the back piece, and we are repeating the process of right sides together, measure, pin, sew, and top stitch. Now that both sides of the pocket are installed, we can lay them on top of each other, right sides together, and sew it in place. We're sewing right along the pocket, but we actually want to continue to sew the side seams together for as long as we possibly can. You will reach a point where it just gets like too tight to continue, but the farther you can go means the less hand sewing you're gonna have to do. So as you can see, there's our pocket all nicely tucked inside, but we are still left with a not so small hole that we need to finish off by hand. I just ended up doing a simple ladder stitch so that you can't see the thread, and I hand sewed until the hole was completely gone. So the vest is officially complete. Here's how it turned out. I'm super happy with it because it pretty much turned out exactly how I imagined it. It does fit like slightly more oversized than what I wanted it to. I did size up on the pattern. Normally I'm a medium. I did size up to a large just because I wanted it to be more oversized because I knew I was gonna wear it over top of like jackets and stuff. I don't hate how oversized it is, but that's basically the only thing that I was not expecting. But yeah, I just think it's so cool. I love how I added the pockets. I wasn't sure if they're gonna be like too bulky or anything, but They're perfect. The Sherpa looks amazing and matches great with the polar bear print. And it's just so cozy. Like, it honestly does feel like you're just wearing a blanket. And I wasn't sure how it was gonna look with the back just being like plain and then the polar bears on the front, but I think it totally works. This might be like my favorite project to date, only because I feel like this is something like I'm really eager to wear. And it was honestly super easy. Like, this would be a great beginner's project, I feel like, because it's kind of like making a jacket except way more simpler. And this like blanket and Sherpa material is very forgiving. Although it's quite bulky, it's not thick like denim, so it's easy to work with. It doesn't fray, and it's really hard to like see your mistakes, so definitely recommend. And once again, please go follow Sunworn Vintage, because like I said, her designs were a huge inspiration for this, obviously. But yeah, I think that's the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you're thinking of making something like this. And as always, I will see you next week.